I hope I'm not alone in thinking the spectacle of Western politicians standing shoulder to shoulder in unity in Paris on Sunday was anything other than a thoroughly nauseating image. And since then we've heard the usual leftist platitudes from them all. Islam is a religion of peace. The murders had nothing to do with Islam. We believe in unity, liberal democracy, freedom of speech, etc., etc., ad infinitum, ad nauseating infinitum. Now, first of all, the murders were not an attack on free speech per se. The Muslim murderers were not gunning down cartoonists because they care greatly about the intricacies of free speech in general. The gunmen have no deeply held convictions about Lady Chatterley's lover and whether it should or should not have been published. And nor do they devote a large amount of their time in pondering the finer points about Oliver Wendell Holmes and our right or non-right to shout fire in a crowded theatre. These murders were simply one part of Islam's war against the West, which they genuinely seek to overthrow and subsequently run under Sharia law. The murder of the cartoonists was done in order to force us into silence about Islam, even when Islam guns down Jews, apes and pigs, according to the Quran, in Parisian supermarkets. As the subhumans, the Untermensch, the infidel, we're not allowed to criticise Islam at all, ever, under any circumstances. The murders were carried out purely in order to enforce Sharia-compliant blasphemy laws against non-Muslims in the West, even as Muslims wage a war of terror against us in the West. The Muslim world is going to great lengths to enforce Sharia-compliant blasphemy laws, and for example, the Organisation of Islamic Cooperation is the principal driver of this, with their incredibly powerful 57-block vote within the United Nations. And the European Union has its own monitoring centre on racism and xenophobia, which was never established for our benefit or Christianity's benefit, just the benefit of Islam alone. And just one example here is the EU report on anti-Semitic attacks in France, which was shelved when it became apparent the perpetrators were not the far right, as the EU had wanted to and expected, but Algerian and Moroccan Muslims instead. So they shelved it, they binned it, and now 1 in 2 French Jews want to leave France because nothing was done about Islam's ever-growing hatred of the Jews. We last saw this in 1930s Nazi Germany. In 2015, we're seeing it in Islamized France. And every single European politician in Paris last Sunday is complicit in this Islamic war against the West. They're pro-Muslim immigration, they're pro-multiculturalism, which is nothing other than an ideology designed to ensure immigrants need ever assimilate into the culture of their host countries. And in the case of Islam, this means basically ensuring fanatically violent European Muslims can adhere to the edicts of the Quran, which call for the death, conversion or submission of all non-Muslims. But even worse is the sheer hypocrisy of our political class. They state they stand against the murders in the name of our liberal democracies. They tweet, "Je suis Charlie," even though not one of them has ever had the integrity or bravery to criticise Islam. But the deepest extent of their treacherous hypocrisy is to claim they stand for free speech, even though it's they, and they alone, who are responsible for passing hate laws, which were designed for one purpose, and one person only, which is to criminalise their own countrymen who speak out about the very real, genuine, long-term dangers of Islam. And their obscene immorality knows no bounds. In order to promote their much vaunted and totally untrue version of community cohesion, they decided not to invite Marine Le Pen because apparently she's divisive. But they did invite Mahmoud Abbas, a man who named streets after the Muslim martyrs killed, blowing up Jews in Israel. Inviting such a man just days after Jews have been gunned down in Paris is apparently not divisive. What a dreadful state leftist-run Europe is now in. Our politicians are basically allied with Islam, yet they've got the self-righteously indignant audacity to weep crocodile tears about the acts of Islamic violence that can only inevitably occur after they invited a historically aggressive, warlike, violent ideology into our countries, and then ensured they retained within their culture the hateful and violent words of Muhammad, commanding Muslims to fight against all men until they testify there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger. What a sickening lot of sanctimonious, hypocritical, cowards, quislings, liars and traitors our political class has become. I curse them all.